Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're here at PM Law in Sheffield. A slight change of arrangements, as you probably realised. Last minute we realised we weren't going to be able to run the event live because of the coronavirus issue. So we've reconfigured everything and turned it into a webinar. Many thanks to PM Law for hosting us, and for Susan Clegg, who's fast-tracked learning on webinars and has seen us through to this point where we can make it go live. So today we've got two presentations, one from Debra, who is the Regional Director of the West Puzzles, and Laura Thorpe, who is the Manager of Disputes and what's the resolution here at Law, who will talk about, first of all, Debra, the employment brand, how you get that right for your business, so the business is attractive to future employees, and we have a reputation out there. Laura will then come in with what happens after those wrong situations where you recruit people suddenly things become difficult. How do you prevent that happening, and how do you deal with those situations and when it happens? So my name is Jim, I'm the Regional Director of Puzzles in Yorkshire, North East, and we'll spend about half an hour on this webinar. We haven't unfortunately got facilitated questions at the end, but what we will do is send out slides and obviously our contact detail on there, and if you've got follow-up issues to consider, please get in touch with either Laura or myself or Deb from the team. We'll be happy to take you through how to support you. So over to Deb, what do we mean by the employer brand, and how do you, as an employer, strengthen your employer brand and get it right for your talent team in-house or for future reference?
Thank you, Jim. My name is Debra, and I had a background in corporate retail. I've been working with SMEs for the last 5 years. And people provide part-time, people direct support, we currently work with around 20 SMEs in an average month. So lots of what we're showing today is what we've learned from our clients as well. So just to start off with, I wanted to share a few highlights for some facts that came about the future of work. So I suppose one of the big things is that the average lifetime of the company changed 60 years back in 1950, 15 years today. We hear lots about AI and robots, and there's a prediction that it will take 120 million jobs across the developed world by 2025. And that 6 million people in the UK could have their job displaced within 10 years. A new skill acquired today will be 50% less important in 5 years' time, and tech's actually changing faster than we can. We currently measure talent through intellect and emotion, but there is a new terminology now, AQ, which is adaptability quotient, which is around people being able to adapt to new ideas and concepts, be resilient to change, and coping with a world of technology. And the skills that will be critical for future workforces are collaboration and teamwork, judgment and decision making, creative thinking, and interpersonal and social skills. So why is employer branding important as the future of work changes? Well, I'm sure everyone agrees the competition for talent has never been so intense, and employees no longer just want a job, they do want an experience. 50% of workers said they would not work for a business with a poor reputation, even if the pay was more. And I'm sure you all agree that your people are your single biggest competitive advantage. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about who's in your organisation, and then we'll move on to how you can improve your employer branding to become a destination for talent. So you may well have seen this analogy before, but if you think about your business and your teams, who is on the bus? So who is on this journey with you? What's the makeup of that team? And the first question is, are they in the right seats? As businesses grow and change, sometimes people outgrow roles, and people sometimes need to move or leave. So who's there for the whole journey, and who's getting on and off at the next stop? And as you go through your growth curve, then different skills and leadership styles may be required. And most importantly, who's in the leadership team and who's driving the bus? what's their messaging, what's their what are their values, and how do they live up to that, and how do they lead the team. So when we talk about people within the team, we use the phrase stars, followers and resistors, or A, B and C players. And everyone would love a business full of stars. So these are the people who are superstars. You would hate to leave them. They work well with others. They push the business forward. They're often really committed and will put their professional lives ahead of the personal life. And they're looking to accomplish more and move upward with the organisation. And it's about 10% of your population. Then we have the B players who really deliver a good day's work for a day's pay. They are the crux of the business. They might not set the world alight, but they make it happen. And that's your 80%. And then we've got 10% of those people who, when you think about them, you better take a deep breath. They can be negative, they can drain you and others. They take up quite a bit of management time, and they can be quite toxic with other team members. And that's normally around 10%. So just take a few seconds and have a think about your team. And what will spring to mind very quickly is those people who sit in your A player category and those people who sit as C players. And actually, in terms of the C players, the key thing is what are you going to do with those people? With the A players, what are you going to do to look after them and retain them? Just give you a few seconds. So we'll move on to employer branding. What I'd like you to do is imagine that you are a candidate looking at your business and deciding whether to apply to you. What would they see? We're going to talk about 5 areas of employer branding today. What I'd like to do as we go through the webinar is for you to rank yourself as red, amber or green against each area, and that will give you a start point as to where you might want to spend some time. What we'll also do after the webinar is send out a handout that we use to actually have this discussion with our clients. So, first step, how would you rank your brand and reputation as a business when you search online? So most candidates, before they do anything else, will literally put your business name into Google. And what comes up? Well, let's hope that what comes up is that you've recently won an award, that the business is growing, that someone in your team has done something amazing, that maybe you've done some work with the community. And what you want is that real positive messaging. Alternatively, what you don't want is, the fact that someone has maybe taken you to an employment tribunal, or someone has been dismissed for something that's, not great. And you want for people to get a feel for who you are straight away. So Glassdoor is effectively the sort of TripAdvisor of employers, and basically employees and ex-employees do reviews and score employers on what it's like to work there. So this is sort of the holy grail, and most candidates today would check you out on Glassdoor. And of course the other place where people will look in terms of potential employers is LinkedIn. So what are your blogs? What are your employees saying about the business? What do you look and feel like when you see that? And would you give yourself a red, an amber or a green on that one? The second one is, why would I want to work here? And we've stolen this from Simon Sinek, who talks about the why. And actually it's really important for people that their purpose and their vision lines up with what the business is wanting to do and why. So things like corporate social responsibility, involvement in the community and charity, and how businesses give back is becoming increasingly important. And the one thing that actually you can control, which gives you a competitive advantage, is your values. So your values are those behaviours defined by you and lived by the leadership team and those people in your organisation. And you can actually touch and feel when those values are alive. So in terms of the third point, what is it like to work here? So the pictures I've actually picked are from the 2 top Glassdoor best places to work in 2020. The picture on the right at the top is Google. So what does the workplace feel like? What's the environment like? What's the lighting like? And the space to work, both alone and collaboratively? And is it flexible? And does this fit with how people want to work? What does your careers page say about you? Does it shout out that come and work with us and this is who we're looking for? And what else is there? What can you see about what the employees are like? Are they having fun? Do they look like they are an integral part of the business and able to contribute? So again, just have a think and score yourself red, amber, green. The fourth point is really, how can I get on here? People really like to be able to see visibly what the career opportunities could be, like how they can increase their skills, their experience, and learn new things. So any stories of internal promotion or how people have moved both sideways as well as up and down is really a strong message to get people to want to be part of your business. And when you're competing against corporate businesses, there's a real win in an SME who is on a high growth curve, because it means someone can be part of something early stage and get involved with the decision makers and really make a big difference. And then, so red, amber, green yourselves again on here, and then we'll move on to the final one. And this is what we call what's in it for me. And this is very much about the rewards and recognition. So there's quite a lot now where people are talking about flexibility is actually more important than salary. And actually a package is more than salary as well. So there's a number of businesses that use total reward statements to just show their employees that the package is made up not only of salary, but maybe bonus, pension, benefits, healthcare, all those sorts of things that actually make a big difference. And people often ask us what are the most what are the most common, or what are the benefits that employees want most? And what's really interesting is different people want different things. So here's something from HR Grapevine which talks about different age groups actually wanting different benefits, from help with getting housing and mental health through to holidays and clothing allowances. And interestingly, one of our clients, his most popular benefit is mobile screen insurance. So people working for them can actually get their mobile screen replaced for free. So sometimes it's really simple things that make a big difference to your teams. So again, if you can just red, amber, green yourself on there, and then have a think about what steps would you need to take now in each of those areas to actually improve your employer branding. Thank you for listening. I wish you the best of luck with that. I'm now going to hand over to Laura, who is going to take us through what happens if it all goes wrong.
Thank you, Deborah. So I'm going to look at the legal side of things and protecting your business from employment claims. So I'm Laura Thorpe. I manage the dispute resolution department at PM Law Solicitors. We're based in Sheffield. I deal with employment matters and all sorts of disputes for both individuals and businesses. So following on from Deborah's session on recruiting the right employees, once you have employees, you need to ensure that you're going to keep them and put as much in place as possible to protect you in case a problem arises. So we're going to be looking at employment contracts, policies, and also updating you on the new changes coming in shortly. It's important as a business that you get to grips with the documentation that you have. So looking at employment disputes, for you to consider any common claims that may arise are redundancy, discrimination, failure to make reasonable adjustments. This usually relates to disability discrimination, disciplinary and grievance procedures, unfair dismissal and constructive dismissal, which is where an employee resigns but it can still give rise to an employment claim. Employment disputes can have a big effect on businesses. They can be costly, with legal fees, and if you have to pay any compensation. They can be time consuming. Staff will need to spend time preparing documents, maybe attending hearings. So it can have a financial drain on a business and also affect the reputation of the business and lower staff morale. This can have a very harmful effect on a small business. So what we're looking at is prevention is better than the cure approach. Claims often come about because either procedures are not known, the correct documentation is not in place, or is not up to date. As an employer, you are responsible for actions of employees, so it's not enough to just have policies in place, but you must make sure that your staff are fully informed. So you might want to look at displaying a policy on a notice board, sending out email reminders, and providing training on the policies. Keeping a paper trail is also vital. If a claim is taken to the employment tribunal, you need evidence such as notes of any discussions and meetings, confirmation of what has been discussed in emails and letters. Ultimately, Don't bury your head in the sand. If there is an issue, tackling it correctly will prevent escalation to the employment tribunal. So I'm going to look at some documentation that you need to be aware of and have in place for you to help protect your business. Firstly, employment contract. A contract of employment is the most important document you should have. It's a legal requirement for employees to be given a written statement of the terms and conditions of their employment within 2 months of them starting employment. This is shortly to change, which I'll come to later on in this seminar. By having a written contract, it helps set expectations for both the employee and the employer and helps prevent any future misunderstandings. There is certain information that has to be included, such as a start date, salary, hours, provision for sick pay, notice period, the job title, place of work, and many others, again, which is set to change, which I'll come to again later in this seminar. Some common clauses you might want to think about including in an employment contract are a probation period, which is a trial at the start of employment, usually for around 3 months, a notice period for the job role. You also might want to consider a clause to terminate without notice in some circumstances, but if you do that, you need to also have what's called a pile-on clause, which is a pay in lieu of notice. Gardening leave may be appropriate where you have employees who have detailed knowledge of technology and information about your business. Although there is an implied term of confidentiality during employment, it's also best to have a specific confidentiality clause within the contract. If you have a number of officers, you might want to consider a mobility clause if you want employees to be required to work in more than one location. Gross misconduct is where the conduct is so serious it can justify an instant dismissal. You need to have a clause to make it clear what acts would be considered to amount to gross misconduct. And lastly, you might want to consider restrictive covenants, which is a way to restrict employees after they have left employment. This may be if you want to prevent employees from taking your clients or working in a specific area. As well as an employment contract, there are a number of policies which employers may have, and I'll provide a checklist with the slides at the end of this seminar for you to have a look through and see what would be useful for your business. With any policy, it's also important to ensure employees are aware of them, and it can be useful to request a signature from employees to confirm that they've received, read and understood the policy. I'm going to look at a few common ones. Disciplinary and grievance policy. This policy provides a framework and consistency to deal with any problems that may arise between employees. ACAS provided a code of conduct for disciplinary and grievance matters, and although it's not legally binding to breach this code, it is considered by the employment tribunal if a claim is pursued. So if you've not looked at the ACAS code of practice on this, I would urge you to do so and ensure that any disciplinary and grievance policy you have is in line with what ACAS have stated. Equality and diversity is a very important policy to have. As an employer, you are liable for any discriminatory acts of an employee if they occur within the employment, and harassment, especially sexual, should be considered as to how you would deal with any such allegations. Dismissing an employee is not going to necessarily be a defence. It is important that you have procedures in place, training and a way of monitoring your policy to help show that you do not allow discriminatory behaviour in your workplace. If a claim is taken to the employment tribunal, then an employer will be judged on what steps they have taken to prevent such acts happening in the first place, and not just how they deal with them when an allegation arises. As there is a growing dependency on technology, an internet and email policy is also useful for business to have. The use of internet and email at work can give rise to a number of legal issues such as harassment and discrimination, defamation, disclosure of confidential information and copyright infringement. Having a policy helps to ensure employees know the way in which the internet and email should be used in the workplace. Social media in the workplace is also becoming a big issue. Up to 40% of employees have been found to misuse social media at work. So it's worth thinking about having a separate social media policy to deal with that specifically for your business. Flexible working often arises when a woman wishes to return after maternity leave, and although there's no right for employees to change their existing working times, having the policy does allow them to make a formal request, and an employer is obliged to reasonably consider any request for flexible working. It's useful to have this policy as it helps to show employees that you're committed to being fair and helps staff retention. So as I mentioned earlier, there is some changes coming in shortly on the 6th of April. In particular, the biggest one is in respect of the employment contract. So you need to be aware of this and how it may affect your business. Currently, employers have 2 months to provide a written particulars of employment. From the 6th of April, employees are entitled to the statement of particulars of employment on the day they start work. Also, existing employees may request an updated statement after this comes in April. In addition, there is more specific information that has to be added into your employment contract, such as conditions relating to hours of work, paid leave, any benefits, any probationary period, and any training entitlement. It's therefore important that you are prepared for this change, review your current contracts, and make the updates in readiness for new starters and existing employees before this comes in on the 6th of April. 2 other main changes coming in again on the 6th of April are in relation to holiday pay. Currently, regardless of your working pattern, all employees are entitled to be paid annual leave at the same amount as what they work. This can be quite a complicated calculation for those workers on variable hours. So from April, the pay reference period will increase from 12 to 52 weeks. So as an employee, you have to look at the past 52 weeks in order to calculate the correct holiday pay. So you need to make sure that you've got the correct records of hours worked and pay received for employees in place, ready for this change coming in. So online clocking systems and timesheets can be useful to keep track of this. And then parental bereavement leave. There is currently no law relating to this, although some employers may have a policy in place for the time off in unforeseen circumstances which might apply to this. But from April, there will be a specific right for parents to be entitled to 2 weeks paid leave if they lose a child under 18 or there is a stillbirth from 24 weeks. So as a business, you need to ensure that you've got the right support in place and the correct bereavement leave policy for this to apply. And lastly, seeing as it's everywhere in the news at the moment, I could not mention coronavirus. It's likely to continue to spread, so you need to prepare your business for the effects that this may have. Employers have a statutory duty to care for employees' health and safety and to provide a safe place of work. Many of your employees are going to be concerned, and so a proactive approach is going to be important. ACAS have recently provided a guidance to ensure that staff details are up to date, to review your sickness policy, take steps to ensure the workplace is clean and hygienic. So if you've not already looked at this, I would suggest that you do so to ensure that your business is prepared in case it's affected by coronavirus. With regards to sick pay, business usual sick pay and entitlements apply to any employee who does have coronavirus. Self-isolation is a slightly different issue as they may not be sick. If a doctor has told them to self-isolate, they're entitled to SSP, but it's good practice to offer contractual sick pay in this time. If someone needs time off to care for someone else who's got coronavirus, then you're obliged to allow them the time off, but not necessarily pay them, depending on what policies you already have in place. So as a business, you need to be flexible for what is happening at the moment with coronavirus and to the needs of your employees. So if you take anything away from this seminar, I would say you need to have a look at your policies and contracts you've got in place, ensure that you've got the correct documentation, review them and update them if necessary, and make sure your employees are kept informed.
Okay, thank you Laura, and thank you Debs for those 2 excellent presentations. We hope you got plenty from it. Just a few points really before we close. We are able to take questions, so if you have got questions, I talked about the technology being learnt very quickly. Susan has learnt on the job literally that we can now take questions here and now. So if you have got them, please tap away and we'll try and answer those in the course of this seminar. I think the real emphasis of this work is around prevention, and both Debs and Laura have highlighted best practice really in terms of, first of all, employer brand. Are you able to attract the best people and then hold on to them by putting this package in front of them in the way that Debs has begun to outline? Equally, are you able to then prevent some of the really difficult issues that can come up where some of the employment issues that Laura's talked about happen? Can you get in earlier to prevent these things happening? And that's really the emphasis I think that Laura's tried to drill down into. The very real impact of this work we find on the ground is very, very toxic, and you've probably got your own experiences of where these things can go wrong. I was in a business just the other week where two senior colleagues have been at loggerheads. There's been an employment issue going on for some time, and it was impacting on the whole business and really divisive in that sense, which leaving the CEO in all sorts of issues about what to do about it. So the quicker we can get to those issues, obviously, the better. But more importantly, can we prevent them ever happening? And that really is the challenge, I think, that we're throwing out to everybody. So, once again, thanks to Debs and to Laura for those excellent presentations. Are there any questions at the moment not coming through? One thing I did want to say, just picking up on Laura's last slide about the coronavirus issue, is that the complexities around this, I think, have focused our minds at People Puzzles so much that we've spent the early part of this week pulling together our response for our clients and prospective clients. So if you go onto the People Puzzles website, which is www.peoplepuzzles.co.uk, and we'll send all this round at the end, you'll see that we put on the website the 10 top tips and a series of FAQs, which are our experience at the moment are really driving concern around the coronavirus issue. So have those available to you. They're on the website. We're actually working with many of our businesses at the moment and clients, drilling down into that, designing bespoke action plans for each business we work with, around a 33-point checklist almost of best practice. So that's where we are at the moment, and I hope you find that very useful if you can get onto the website and access it around the help menu. So, are there any questions at the moment?
No.
Okay. No. So we hope you've found the session really helpful. Sorry not to meet you in person. We would have run this session, as you know, at the Chamber of Commerce. We had a number of people responding to us. It would have been, I think, a great session to have met you. What we'll do is talk about how we rearrange something like that further down the line, so that we'll keep you posted. Certainly from People Puzzles and PM Law, we want to build this working relationship so that we can offer our clients, prospective clients, a real package of support, both in the AHR field and then in the way that the PM Law can respond in the way Laura's been talking about. So I'm just looking at okay, we'll probably leave it there, and thank you for your time today, joining us, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.